Welcome to the rabbit hole. In these short videos I will be explaining various inconsistencies going on in the reporting during the COVID pandemic. I'm keeping them short and precise so they can be shown to people who can't or don't want to see what's going on during this time. I will use as many links to government departments as I can. Where I can't, I will use multiple sources to confirm the facts. This episode is called The Great COVID Death Scandal, and I will be explaining how the COVID death recording system works. Okay, this is the NHS website that tells you all about self-isolation should you test positive for COVID or get COVID symptoms. Okay, if you've tested positive, how long do you need to self-isolate for? If you test positive, your self-isolation period includes the day your symptoms started or the day you had the test, if you do not have symptoms, and the next 10 full days. Now that's important, 10 full days. If you get symptoms while you're self-isolating, the 10 days, again 10 days, restarts from the day after your symptoms started. So when you stop self-isolating, either after the 10 days, if you do not have any symptoms, or you just have a cough or changes to your sense of smell or taste, and they can go on for weeks. Okay, so when to keep self-isolating, if you have any of the following symptoms after the 10 days, a high temperature, feeling hot and shivery, a runny nose or sneezing, feeling or being sick, or you get the threatening bits, diarrhea. Okay, so it says only stop self-isolating when these symptoms have gone. But if you get the tontits, or you're still being sick, stay at home until 48 hours after they've stopped. If somebody you live with has tested positive. Okay, so if somebody you live with tests positive, your self-isolation period includes the day their symptoms started or the day they had the test, and again the next 10 full days. And again, you can stop self-isolating after 10 days if you do not get any of the symptoms. Okay, so this is pretty much consistent throughout the whole thing. If somebody in your support bubble has tested positive, how long do you need to self-isolate? Okay, so if you've been in close contact with them since their symptoms started or during the 48 hours before their symptoms started, again, it's the 10 full days. And again, you can stop self-isolating after the 10 days if you do not get any symptoms. If you've been told to self-isolate by the NHS Test and Trace system, again, you get a text, email or call from the NHS Test and Trace telling you to self-isolate. You get an alert from the NHS COVID-19 app telling you to self-isolate. And again, your self-isolation period includes the day you were last in contact with a person who tested positive and the next 10 full days after that. So just to summarise this, it's basically 10 days, or if you get the symptoms, 10 days after the symptoms start. So 10 days is an important amount of time, which is why I keep mentioning it here. Now I'm going to explain a bit about the COVID death reporting system. On the 17th of July 2020, from the BBC website, this article was published. Hancock calls for urgent review into coronavirus death data in England. And it says here, it follows confirmation from Public Health England that reported deaths may have included people who tested positive months before they die. But I think that may is more of a certainty. Other UK nations only include those who die within 28 days of a positive test. And officials say the publication of daily death figures will be paused while the issue is resolved. Note on the government's website said, currently the daily deaths measure counts all people who have tested positive for coronavirus and since died, with no cut-off between time of testing and date of death. There have been claims that the lack of cut-off may distort the current daily deaths number. Again, that word may, it's more of a certainty, isn't it really? And why would they record the deaths this way? Who knows? But in my opinion, there are only two reasons for doing it. It's either gross incompetence or manipulation of the figures. So this story was also covered in the Daily Mail at the same time. There you go, 17th of July 2020, and if you do a search online it will also be in other newspapers as well. The Sun covers it, iNews and ITV.com, the Metro, Independent, it's all there. After being paused on the 17th of July, recording resumed on August the 12th when a press release was issued on the government's website to say new UK-wide methodology agreed to record COVID-19 deaths. And it says here, deaths in people with COVID-19 that occurred within 28 days of testing positive will be published daily. The approach, endorsed by all 4 UK chief medical officers, will be used by all 4 UK nations. And in England, a new set of figures will also be published, showing the number of deaths that occur within 60 days of a positive test. Deaths that occur after 60 days will also be added to this figure if COVID-19 appears on the death certificate. This will provide an additional measure of the impact of the disease over time. And this information can actually be found on the Public Health Matters blog as well. And the link for this will be in the description below. A suitable analogy would be this. If you crash your car, there is a chance you may be injured or even killed. There is the probability any injuries sustained could lead to your death further down the line. There is also a chance you could escape completely unhurt, depending on the severity of the crash. However, if the original government rules for COVID death reporting were applied to car crash death recording, then you could have a small bump in Morrison's car park at 5 miles an hour and die from, say, cancer 6 months later. But because you had a car crash, albeit a very minor one, you would be registered as dying in a car crash, despite the fact it had nothing to do with the cause of death. If you applied the updated rules, then if you died from another cause within 28 days or even 60 days of that minor bump in the car park, you would be put down as a car crash death, as both sets of figures are recorded. So, time for a quick recap on those figures. Self-isolation period was 10 days. The initial death count was basically if you died after testing positive for COVID. So I've put the infinity symbol there, it might just as well have been. But when they updated the methodologies, the new one was anybody who died within 28 days of testing positive. But also they do measure anybody who dies within 60 days of testing positive. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you can see when new videos come up. As always in my videos, I suggest you do your own research on this subject as well. Look at the links in the description below, but also make your own mind up and take a trip further down the rabbit hole.